What's up, Eagles Nation? What's going on, NFL world? How you doing, division rivals? This is Steven Hyder with Gate City Sports Channel, the sports channel where the cerebral NFL fan comes for about 10 minutes of daily content. Okay, guys, today's topic. I want to talk about what I watched and what I observed on film from last weekend's game. I'm not going to talk about the particulars of last weekend's game because, look, as I said in my live stream yesterday, we've already swept the Redskins. That series is over. I just want to look at what we can take going forward for this game in Dallas. One game at a time, guys. We have been in the playoffs since that Giants game. That's the way I look at it. The minute we lose a football game from here out, clearly the season's over. So none of that matters if we don't keep winning. What I do want to talk about, though, is I want to talk about Doug Pederson, his play calling, his utilization of players like Boston Scott, Joshua Perkins, and Rob Davis. Because I'm going to tell you something, guys. When I went back through and I looked at the film, I was really pleasantly surprised. The first half of last week's game was one of the best called games I thought Doug Pederson has done in a while. There are a lot of things when you watch it on film, you don't really catch it going live when you're watching it live. But when you see it back on the film, it's kind of like, oh, okay. All right, Doug, I see what you were trying to do there. I'm not saying there wasn't meat on the bone. I would have liked to have seen a little more utilization of Rob Davis on certain plays, but at least I understood the direction of the football team in this game. I thought it was very well called. All right, y'all. I know some of y'all already look at me going, what the hell are you talking about, Gate City? Give me a chance. Let me show you what I saw and then make your decision, all right? Just give me a chance to show you it first. All right, y'all. Let's jump into the topic.
Take it to Miles Sanders and a throw on first down. And who else would it be? Zach Ertz.
Okay, guys. On the topic of Doug Pederson, one criticism I've had about Doug Pederson throughout the year has been at times he's not very creative in the utilization of multiple packages in a football game. He can be very heavy, just 11-man or 12-man when everything is ideal. Between, when he had Deshaun and he had Alshon and he had, Jordan Howard, he had Miles Sanders and he had Ertz and Goddard. Like his formations were very, very predictive. He just pretty much stayed in those two fronts. Originally, it was heavy 11-man. As we start to lose receivers, we went heavy 12-man. And for a long time, there was a period to where we knew our best skill set after the injuries to the wide receiver group was at the tight end position and at the running back position. And very, very seldom did he go into two-back sets. And people like me kept screaming for him. You've got to be more creative. You've got to look at teams like San Francisco who are using these multiple formation sets and attacking people. And we've got to mirror it because we're going to be built similar to San Francisco with all these injuries to where we don't have marquee players out on the edges anywhere. Now, they got Emmanuel Sanders, who's better than anything we're currently throwing out there. But you got to think about, prior to Emmanuel Sanders on San Francisco's football team, what outside receiving threat was really backing you off and scaring you? None were. It was just good coaching, good play design, and players being where they were supposed to be and playing hard for the organization. What I saw, number one and foremost, from this first half of this football game was Doug Pederson being way more creative with the utilization of different personnel packages. Now, let me preface this by saying one thing. We were very much a dominant 12-man package. That was the dominant formation. Every team has a dominant formation. We were about 60.5%, so roughly 61% 12-man utilization, personnel package utilization through the first half of this football game. But this is where I think things get interesting, is the other 39% of plays, we ran them out of 4 different formations. We ran them out of 3 wide receiver formations in the 11-man.
Take the handoff, Wentz, crossing pattern, and that has got it.
We ran them out of 3 tight end formations in the 13-man.
Well, they race up to the line of scrimmage and pitch it to Sanders, and he will find the end zone. Touchdown, Philadelphia.
And then we ran them out of 21 and 22 or 2-back sets from that 21 and 22 man.
40-yard line is in the game with second. And this has got it. His 41st catch.
Basically. So we went from everywhere from 3 wide receivers to 3 tight ends to 2-back utilization in the first half of this football game. It was very impressive. When you break it down, what's even more impressive is the percentage of use for those. So 3 wide receiver sets, 13% of snap. 3 tight end snaps, 13%. Three tight end sets, 13% of snaps. 2 back sets, 13% of snaps. Now, the way the 2 back sets broke down, guys, is we used 3 plays in a 21-man, 2 plays in a 22-man. And to be honest with you, if it wasn't for penalties calling back plays, we would have been a little heavier on the utilization of 2 back sets. But we had a few plays where we had some stupid false starts, some stupid illegal blocks, things like that, that unfortunately brought us back to a longer down and distance where 2 back sets, we bailed out of it. Not that we needed to necessarily, but we did bail out of it. So the first thing I will say is, hey, they did use 2 back sets. Doug Pederson finally removed his head from his ASS and actually used a 2 back set.
Penalties on this drive, accounting for 30 yards. But now a couple of more by the Eagles, and on the first.
I thought Doug Pederson, Carson Wentz, and this offensive coaching staff, all the way down, and y'all are going to like this, all the way down to Mike Groh, did a really good job with play selection and design in the first half. Second half was a little different, although we came back in the second half and put up the majority of our points. I don't think that the play design, I don't think some of the individual decisions were quite as good in the second half as they were in the first half. However, there's one big thing to point out. At the end of the day, as Doug Pederson and this offense and Carson Wentz looked up at the scoreboard going into halftime, they trailed 14-10. And you know what? There's always a reason for why in a game where you're doing a pretty good job of play selection and you're moving the football, you turn around and you look up and you're losing the game. It's never a comfortable place to be, and there's always a reason behind it. And this is a new segment I want to roll out on my channel, and I'm going to call this segment, Man, you got to be better than that. All right, let's talk about the offensive line, and not just the offensive line, but just blocking in general. And let's go into some, man, you got to be better than that. All right, guys, this is just nothing more than an unbalanced 3-by-1 set. This is a formation the Eagles are very familiar with. As a matter of fact, the Redskins straight up stole this from the Eagles. Redskins are more of a diamond front, 5 defensive linemen across. Not so much this unbalanced front that the Eagles like to run, this 3-by-1 set. And basically, what Washington is trying to do here is very simple, guys. They're trying to force the Eagles into slide protecting left and leaving a one-on-one matchup between Ryan Anderson and Miles Sanders to get to Carson Wentz. That's what they want. That's what they're aiming for. You can even see Kelsey hits his hip to check with Wentz what he wants. To Wentz's credit, he does not slide protect. If he slide protects, he's going to be in trouble. Luckily, he didn't slide protect, but that's not what we're looking at. I want you to watch the Isaac Seumalo and Jonathan Allen matchup because that's you got to be better than that. Jonathan Allen is going to manhandle Seumalo right into the throwing motion of Wentz. Don't get me wrong. Jonathan Allen is a phenomenal football player. This is a rising star in the league. Ioannidis on the other side, very good football player. Nonetheless, this is supposed to be the building of a very good offensive line. And when I see people getting pushed back into the lap of Carson Wentz, repeatedly on film, the 2 people I see who are guilty of this are Seumalo and Kelsey. And it's got to stop. It's got to stop. Kelsey, he's older. He's a little undersized. It's not really a great excuse for Seumalo. Seumalo is still about 305-ish, 310-ish. It's just not excusable for him to keep getting pushed back the way he keeps getting pushed back. To be honest with you, I think Seumalo might be better suited to play center than that left guard position. And it's plays like this that make you see that. Now, there's another individual I'd like to talk about. I've heard people, content creators, say recently that we don't need Jordan Howard. I'm going to tell you, I don't agree with that statement at all. Because Boston Scott adds something to the offense. When you do 2 back sets and you got Boston Scott in there and then you got Miles Sanders, you have a lot of speed on the football field, okay? You have misdirection where you can get a team moving laterally and it's not comfortable with doing that. Absolutely. It adds an element to our offense. However, I got to tell you, Boston Scott was guilty a few times on what we can say is, man, you got to do better than that in pass protection. Because there were a couple times where Boston Scott got ate up. And that's where a player like Jordan Howard brings a physicality besides just going and getting short yardages, besides just pushing an offensive line into the end zone on goal lines. He's not going to let somebody come in and manhandle him in pass protection. So I respect some of the people that are saying this. I just adamantly disagree with them. On a 3rd and long, Washington comes out again in an unbalanced D line. The Redskins once again give the Eagles on a 3rd and long a look. Now, mind you, the first one was a first down, but this is a 3rd and long. They give them a look of a unbalanced 3-on-1 defensive line again. This time they do have 2 safeties up in the box. They got the linebackers in the box, so they could be sending anywhere between 6 or 7 blitzers, maybe 5. It's hard to predict these type of things. This time it does look like the Eagles do a slight slide to the left block. It looks like the expectation is that Wentz is going to sidestep to the left. Okay, they're going to have Peters double down with Suamalu on Jonathan Allen, and then they're going to have they're expecting that only the linebacker is going to come from the outside. I think they're expecting Landon Collins to drop back off again in a zone. However, what the Redskins do sneakily this time is they drop everyone on the left-hand side back into a zone, but everyone on the right side, the defensive right side, actually comes. So they're sending a 4-on-4. You got 3 offensive linemen and you got 1 running back trying to block basically 2 linemen, a safety, and a linebacker. So it's a 4-on-4 situation. Because Peters kind of slides to the left on that protection to help double down on Jonathan Allen, which isn't even a good double because he's already kind of winning, and there's already a double kind of coming from Kelsey and Suamalu. It's just a bad choice. What ends up happening is you get Boston Scott coming across the formation to pick up Landon Collins, and Landon Collins manhandles him. I have to believe Jordan Howard's not getting manhandled by Landon Collins this way. So now you got Landon Collins with a direct line going into Carson Wentz because he's manhandling Boston Scott back into him. And you have a free release from one of the Redskins linebackers, which I can't tell from this angle who it is. So I'd have to look that up. But you can see it's a bad play design. It's a bad pickup by Boston Scott. It's a bad decision by Jason Peters. You got to be better than that. Come on, man. You got to be better than that. Boston Scott, you got to be better than that, man. Okay, guys, back to the positives. Back to the positives from what I saw from the first half of this Eagles football game and what we can use going forward against Dallas. Look, Doug Pederson was very creative with simple little things like when to use balanced offensive lines versus an unbalanced offensive line. And what do I mean by balanced versus unbalanced? Guys, this is simply talking about the way you place your lead backs or the way you place your tight ends. For the Eagles, it's mostly the way that we utilize like a 12-man front. So how we place the tight ends, because we play a lot of 12-man. So balanced front would basically being a tight end on both sides. So a tight end on the left, a tight end on the right.
So they're scoring touchdowns. That's 6th best in the league. Bobbled by Wentz.
Versus an unbalanced line being 2 tight ends on the left, 2 tight ends on the right.
And they pitch it to Scott.
13-man. How do you use that to create balance or unbalance? So are you going, generally speaking, you're going to be unbalanced there. So are you going 2 tight ends on the left, 1 tight end on the right, 3 tight ends on the left? Are you going maybe 1 tight end on the left and 2 tight ends on the right? It's, or 3 tight ends on the right. How do you set up the balance of your line? I thought the Eagles were very, very balanced in the way that they attacked the Washington Redskins. And I think that's something that we can do to really affect the game and the pace of the game when it comes to actually going out there and attacking the Dallas Cowboys. Because everyone knows we're going to run a 12-man package because of the lack of weapons we have at wide receiver. But with that said, it's the way the Eagles use 12-man sets that makes it hard to play us. We'll go bounce, we'll go unbalanced. We'll have a tight end lined up as an X. We use Zach Ertz quite a bit in the X receiving formation. We'll motion, we'll move, we'll pull, we'll put Dallas Goedert in the wing. We'll move Dallas Goedert into the backfield as a lead block. It's the way that you utilize these fronts, guys, that makes all the difference in the world.
So beat up at that position, and here's Sanders inside the 5. And
if you guys want a great example of just how unpredictable this Eagles offense has been over the past couple of weeks with this, lack of personnel to us and the way we've had to utilize certain players who are kind of crossbreeds in between players. There was the very first example I gave you of an unbalanced line, not the one that just rolled before I started talking, but the one prior to that. The Eagles were actually in what's is a 22-man personnel package. But what's interesting is that the Eagles utilize a guy like Joshua Perkins in that particular set, not as a tight end. He's your X receiver to the top of the screen. Well, depending on your side of it, but basically, if you look to the side that's basically to the offensive left, that's Perkins as a wide receiver, not a tight end. And what's really funny about the way the Eagles are utilizing packages is that some of these organizations who track and monitor like utilization of certain packages, they can't even keep up. And I'm going to show you a hilarious example of this. So just stick with me. I'm going to flip the screen around. I'm going to show you guys something. It's pretty funny. All right, guys. So this is Sharps football stats. This is the way you can track like offensive personnel grouping frequency. So you can see I got it set to all downs, all quarters, all weeks, all positions, blah, 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 right? So this is just monitoring run, pass, the different formations they use. If you go between Oakland and Pittsburgh, you'll see Philadelphia, right? 53% from the 11-man and 45% from 12-man, okay? The predominantly formations we have. I want you to watch something. Let me shake this up just a little bit. Let's go to weeks, okay? Let's do away with all weeks, and let's just focus on the last 2 weeks, week 14 and 15, when we sustained all these injuries and had to get really creative with using practice squad football players. This just tells you how unpredictable the Eagles are and how funny this is. Let's go down. So we got Pittsburgh and Oakland, no Philadelphia. They literally took Philadelphia out of this because they could not track the offensive personnel grouping frequencies. That's funny. All right. Returning to our conversation of Doug Pederson have to utilize all these practice squad players. You got guys like Greg Ward, Jr. I didn't track his total because he didn't play every snap, but he played damn near every snap in the game. He was definitely the most utilized wide receiver. So the other three players that came up from the practice squad that played significant, roles, let's just talk about the first half, guys. Robert Davis, played 6 snaps in the first half. Boston Scott played 12 snaps in the first half. And then Joshua Perkins played 5 snaps in the first half. Rob Davis was primarily used when the Eagles went into 11-man personnel. Joshua Perkins was primarily used when the Eagles went into 13-man personnel. There's some variance there, but the majority of their snaps are coming from those two personnel groupings. Boston Scott was utilized all over the place. He was utilized in 11-man, 12-man, clearly 21 and 22-man. Like he was utilized all over the place here. So the Eagles went heavy in the utilization of these football players. It's not like we hid them. Now, with that said, if we're talking about the success of the Eagles, the success of Carson Wentz, the success of Doug Pederson and Mike Groh and the rest of his offensive coaching staff in the first half, why did things look so good on film? I think a lot of that has to do with the decision to, number one, devolve power into the hands of Carson Wentz to shake and change things up at the line of scrimmage without needing to get justification or clarification from the coaching staff. Them trusting in Carson to be that $100 million quarterback. You know what? You got to take the training wheels off and let them be Carson. Number two, they did not hold the football, guys. In the second half, I think some of the plays, that's when we start seeing the fumbles from Carson Wentz and things like that started happening, which led to the ultimate heroics of Carson Wentz late in the fourth quarter. With that said, why we didn't see that necessarily in the first half, there's really only a couple of plays in the first half where you can see an example of holding the ball a little too long, where you can see like hero ball. There's one play in particular I thought of in the first half where it's like, okay, that's Wentz trying to do a little too much with hero ball. But for the rest of the half, that first half, one thing you can say is that the play calling was get the ball out of your hands fast, quick timing rhythm passes, and it worked. The other thing that was pretty unique about the way we played it is that the Eagles, they ran the football in the first half. Not only were they in 2-back sets, but they ran the football. It was almost a 60-40 split. It was really about 62-38. There is one play, depending on how you want to count it, could skew that to a 60-40. That's the scramble drill that Carson Wentz had to do on one of the plays where you just kind of scramble out of the pocket. Most services would count that as a run. I don't necessarily disagree with that, but the way, if you're trying to map what the play calling was, that play call was a pass that broke down into a scramble. So to me, I just kind of discounted it. I didn't count it into the total 38 snaps, only counted 37 snaps, and I took that play out. And that gave me the 62-38 threshold for pass to run ratio that I got. 62% of plays from the pass, 38% from the run. You might get a skew to a 60-40 if you plug that play in as a run. So that's where you could get variance in what I'm reporting to you. However, the offensive design was very clear. Quick timing passes, unique formations, predominantly 12-man personnel package, mixing in with 11-man, 3 wide receiver sets, 13-man, 3 tight end sets, and then 2 back sets from the 21 and 22-man. It's how we attack this defense, and it's probably how we're going to attack the Dallas Cowboys. We're going to get creative. You're going to have to play Where's Waldo, and if we get certain players back, I just hope that Doug Pederson doesn't take his foot off the gas pedal and stays creative like we saw in the first half. I think some of the breakdowns we saw in the second half was due to the fact that the defense was a letdown. I think at the end of the day, Peterson's looking up at the scoreboard going, we called a really great game in the first half, and we're still trailing 14-10 thanks to the defense. I also don't think it's any mystery that the only series of the 5 we had, now mind you, one of those series was literally just running the clock out to go to halftime, so really 4. But the only series we went 3 and out in was a series where we threw the ball all 3 downs. And to make matters worse, we probably still would have converted had we had a better blocking play from one of our running backs, Boston Scott, and had Wentz put a better pass out there for Ertz, and had Ertz made a play where the ball hit his hands. So it was still kind of a matter of execution of why we went 3 and out there. But nonetheless, there was creativity in the first half. I liked the play calling I saw from the first half. There were some nuances there. They did use Robert Davis to clear the football field. They used Robert Davis a few times to open up zones, open up holes in the zones, and to hit Goddard, to hit Ertz underneath. There was one play where they used, and I showed it in my live stream, where they used Robert Davis to run down the seam, and that opened up the flats for like a little dump off pass to Miles Sanders where he got a nice chunk.
15-yard penalty, automatic first down. They screen the ball to Sanders.
So those plays existed. I just wish the Eagles, when they really started trying to double down on Ertz in the second half, had just threw one out there for Robert Davis. Just give him a shot to back the defense off. That's where the one criticism I would have would come. We need to see more shot plays like that. Hopefully that gets built into practice this week, that they pay attention that Robert Davis was back in the coverage off. He did a pretty good job of that. Although he didn't get a target and he didn't get any receptions because he didn't have any targets, he did back the coverage off. We need to pay attention to stuff like that more. All right, guys. I hope this was a good video for y'all. I hope this was, useful and instructful. But I'm gonna peace out of here, guys. This is my content for the day. If y'all could do me a favor, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. This is the kind of content I try to put out on a weekly basis. I do try to do daily uploads. I'm normally pretty successful at getting a video to you every day. So yeah, check me out, man. Y'all check me out if you're not subscribed. All right, y'all. Peace. You know what time it is. EAGLES. Keep the foot on the gas pedal. Keep play calling being creative. Keep devolving power into Carson Wentz's hands and get the ball out of his hands quickly. I think these are going to be very, very successful keys to how you can beat a team like Dallas, who's clearly the more talented football team, and you're on your home turf for the division. It's there. We just got to keep doing it.